Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and you are watching Poland Daily Culture. Since the times of epidemic recalls in us many metaphysical questions, we will talk today about the greatest Polish philosophers of 20th century. With me in the studio is Marek Kądzielski, former student of Professor Bogusław Wolniewicz and a Polish philosopher. Thank you for having the courage to be with us.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to your program.
Fever, sore throat, problem with breathing?
Fortunately, nothing like this. But it's worthwhile remembering that last plague in Europe resulted in a very outstanding literary output, which is Decameron by Boccaccio. So we should rather think in these categories that we can bring something fruitful to this world thanks to epidemic. But still, it is a cause to think in metaphysical in the times of plague.
Since we are talking about Polish philosophy in the 20th century, and you are a former student of Professor Bogusław Wolniewicz, who was an incredible mind and who influenced many, but let's come back in history and ask ourselves the question, how he was formed intellectually. And he was a student of Henryk Elsenberg, who is also a Polish philosopher. And what we can say about Elsenberg is that he was an individualist in philosophical thought. We cannot really put him in any school or make him a member of any school. He created his own school, but he, as a student in Paris, he was listening to lectures of Henryk Elsenberg at the Collège de France in Paris during his times of studies. So he was influenced by this part of philosophical schooling of Bergson. And just for our viewers to put them in the frames of times, Henryk Elsenberg lived between 1881 to 1967. So that's how part of the most important works was done in the 20th century, and he could influence other 20th century thinkers in Poland. But who Henryk Elsenberg was when it comes to thinking?
Elsenberg was the master of Wolniewicz. He was professor of philosophy. He was a very well-educated person. He was educated in France. He studied with Henri Bergson, with Lévi-Bril in Collège de France. He was fascinated by French literature, but eventually he turned into philosophy. He was very deeply interested in Leibniz, probably the most genius philosophical mind in the history of the world.
Oh, you're insulting Plato right now, and Aristotle and Kant. So I'm sorry.
I'm not insulting other geniuses by no means, but still,
Leibniz. Okay,
these opinions are, of course, maximum intersubjective, let's say. But coming back to Elsenberg, he influenced Wolniewicz greatly. Wolniewicz listened to Elsenberg lectures and attended his seminars when he was studying in Toruń. The University of Toruń was the University of Vilnius, moved after World War II to the city. And
I think it's worth mentioning and actually trying to explain to our viewers. So we had a great philosophical school, which was Warsaw Lviv School before the World War II. And because of the tragic war event, after the war, it moved to Toruń, and many professors who survived the occupation started the same school back in Toruń, influenced very strongly by logic. Is it correct?
Not precisely. In fact, Lwów was moved into Wrocław, into Breslau, while Vilnius was moved into Toruń.
Oh, I see.
And Elsenberg was from Vilnius University. He was a very deep thinker. One of the most difficult and advanced minds in metaphysics that I have ever read. Very difficult in understanding, but still it's worthwhile remembering about other distinction. If we think about philosophy, especially philosophy in the 20th and in the beginning of 21st century, we have to distinguish the clarity of words versus clarity of thoughts. In this way, we may point out the philosophers that express clear thoughts in clear words. And the best example is Bertrand Russell. He used to say, when I make a mistake, it's very clear. So he was not hiding anything. He even admitted in the preface to one of his books that everything he wrote inside is wrong because other logical philosopher, proved something to the contrary, and he is right. But maybe it's still worthwhile reading Russell's book to avoid this kind of mistakes, of this kind of errors in thinking in the future. So he was very fair in this meaning. But on the other hand, you have some philosophers that are not using clear words, but that have very clear thoughts in their minds. And the best example is Immanuel Kant. So it's impossible to read Kant and understand everything at a glance. It's very complicated. And it's also worthwhile noticing that Kant started using an archaic German language by unknown reason.
Maybe to sound a little bit wiser.
Maybe it sounded a little bit wiser, but definitely these words are not very clear. But the thought of Immanuel Kant is very deep and clear. So this is similar with Elsenberg. Elsenberg influenced Wolniewicz greatly, and one of the main thoughts that Wolniewicz captured from Elsenberg is that philosophy is a serious thing, and this is by no means a gentle conversation between gentlemen. It's a fight. It's a real war, a struggle for human souls and human minds. And this is either me or you, no third path, no third option. So this is the way Elsenberg used to philosophize. When he encountered an opinion that was contrary to his system, he always put them in the strongest way possible to demonstrate the opinions of his opponent, and then he attacked them. But what is also important, and what also characterized Wolniewicz, that he was attacking the opinions, not the people. When you attack the opinions, you have the opponent. When you attack the people, you have enemies. So this is important. People tend to think that when Wolniewicz attacked some opinions, he was attacking the persons. It's not true. But he was very tough, like Mike Tyson. It's a very good comparison. So encounter with Mike Tyson is always painful, even if you win.
It's a good sum up to say that some philosophical spiral is like a battle. And one of those great fighters were Henryk Elsenberg and later Professor Bogusław Wolniewicz, both of them Mike Tysons in philosophy. If you don't know them, you definitely at least have to read who were those people. And stay with us, stay tuned, and wait for other episodes about the greatest Polish philosophers in 20th century. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.